Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Backstage Bikini podcast. And on today's episode, we have Miss Kerry Sexton. She is an IFBB Pro posing coach and online coach. And we couldn't wait to have Kerry on the podcast because I think everybody knows who she is, especially in the UK at this stage. She has been a competitor for a very, very long time with heaps and heaps of experience. So we couldn't wait to pick her brains. But Kerry, thank you for coming on the podcast. How are you keeping?
Hello, thank you firstly for having me on here. I know we've tried to hook this up a few times. And first of all, massive shout out to you guys for doing this because honestly, I've been hearing like your name amongst different people talking about this podcast. So I think you're really doing something good in the industry. So yeah, massive well done.
Oh, thank you. That means
That's the first
lot.
time. Yeah, it's the first time someone said it, actually. Thank you. I've got all proud.
I think you have, like, I am hearing it in different places, seeing it pop up everywhere. So yeah, massive well done there.
Yeah, we wanted to cover it all, I suppose, and especially the show side of things and doing reviews and stuff like that. And I know you've been popping up on reviews, like Team Elite Physique and all that kind of thing. So we kind of just wanted to cover it for all UK athletes because I feel like you guys don't get enough recognition as well. I mean, like amateurs and pros as well. But I suppose going back to the start, Kerry, if people don't know who you are, tell us how you kind of got into the industry, how you fell into competing and all that kind of thing.
So, yeah, I fell into the industry. When did I come in? I started training in 2015 on my dad's split. Literally, like, I didn't touch glutes for probably a good couple of years into like my journey. It was more like, can I go to the gym with you? And yeah, if you can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, then you can. It was that kind of vibe. I had been playing football for like many years before that. So I think that's where some of my, how do you put it? Like my routine and like drive comes from, because I had a pretty like hard coach. Like if you're a minute late, you're running laps. So 20 minutes late, 20 laps. You know, drop your head in a game, then you're basically like told to go spinning the next day, or sick on the sideline, good, get up, go again, that kind of stuff. So I think quite a lot of like where all of this has really stemmed from is like from football. I got offered like scholarship and stuff for football, but I turned it down. And I guess I feel like when I was younger, I was really good at dance, failed at football, as you put it, like quit. And then as soon as bodybuilding came, it felt different. It felt like this is something that I want to be good at. So yeah, it all kind of really started with an eating disorder. So I was bulimic. The last time I made myself sick was 2016. It was like May. I think I was like around a month out from my first show. And how the show thing came about was pretty like random, really. A lot of my journey actually comes from my dad. So my dad actually always said to me when I was younger, like, oh, like you could be up on stage, like one day, blah 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 blah. Just not even in like whatever. Like I was quite funny as a kid. He used to say like along those terms, I should be on stage doing something like that, dancing, something like that. Anyway, my dad started his journey, and it was with a company called Visalis, which is like Body by Vi. It was basically like a replica like Herbalife. And he was quite overweight and had some like health issues. And my sister went along to this business meeting and heard about this Visalis thing, and it was like different to Herbalife. They tracked macros and stuff like that, and it was a bit more like not just the shakes, but more about like your overall nutrition. But still shakes, cookies, like things like that. And yeah, so I remember my dad wanting to meet up with this person to like talk about it and get his own journey on the road. And no one knew at that time what like I was going through. So I stopped playing football. I used to play football like 5 times a week, 2 matches a week for like 2 different teams. I used to train like 3 times a week, and then like spinning or whatever if I had to. Then where am I? Then
was it his like suggestion for you to like pursue actually getting on stage itself when you started training?
Okay, I know where I'm at. So basically, then I said to him, like, can I come along? Like, I want to be involved in this, because the word like weight loss came around, and I'm thinking I've still got the same habits that I had playing football, and we weren't taught about nutrition in any way. So obviously my output was massive, and then went from like that to like nothing, but my eating continued like the same. Therefore my body started to change, obviously, in a way that I didn't like, and I literally cannot even like remember why or when or like how I made myself sick. And then this whole cycle that you fall into, and that we like all know about these days, of like binge, cut, restrict, sick, like all this stuff just kept on like repeating itself. So yeah, that was kind of that, and I kept that quiet. But then I went along to this meeting, and like that's where it kind of all came around for that. And then the gym was like a no-go, didn't really like think much of it. Used to go to like body pump classes back to back, eat a bit of salmon and like veg or something like that, and then that was like it. Then, you know, you've restricted, then you get hungry, then you binge, then you're sick. Like it was just that really repetitive like cycle. I worked as like it was called a home shopper in Asda at the time, which was where you basically, people do that online shopping and you're the person that picks the food. So that's actually a lot of like steps, and you're under like time pressure and like stuff like that. So my output must have been like a bit higher. I was starting very early in the morning, didn't really like, I want to say like know much about sleep, how important it was. Like now I literally value my like 8 hours sleep, and if not, I'm angry. But back then I started work at like 5, so I'd get up at 4, and I probably didn't go to sleep like 11 till 12, something like that. So obviously my hunger hormones and everything's all just in the gutter and whatever, as you can imagine. And I didn't really eat much. And then I would finish work, and as I'm in Asda around food, as I'm picking, I'm seeing things I want, almost making that like hoard list. I'm gonna get that after, I'm gonna get that after. Eat on the way home. No one's at home when I get back from work, because it's like 11, 12, midday. So I've got like the freedom to just be sick, do what I want, go to sleep, wake up, eat a small amount of food, get off to an exercise class. So it was like that. I used to binge quite a lot, like in my car, like while I was like driving, and that was like one of my like patterns. It's really bizarre. Yeah, so that went on for like quite a long time, really. Then so all like the training and everything begun, and I started to kind of get a grips on things. My dad was like, look, you have to eat like fats and you won't get fat. I can remember being like, so if I eat fats, I'm not going to get fat? And he's like, no, like it's not the way it works. And my dad's got quite a good like knowledge of things. Like even when I was getting into coaching, for example, I could say to him like, oh, this person's struggling with this, or what does this do? Or, and he would always kind of answer me, because he had learned that much for himself in his own journey, and he hasn't been into fitness forever. Like it was kind of a later thing once he got ill. So that was good. Then I started to ask if I could go to the gym with him and his friend. They said yes, if you can make it there at 6, probably expecting me to be like, nah, because I left that other job by then. So I did. I went along, and my dad said to me like from that like day that he could just see like a spark like in my eyes, that I could like give that little bit more, which like was kind of like a wow, like taken back, like proud moment almost, I think, for him. So then he started looking at bodybuilding shows for himself. He was looking at the BMBF like federation or something like that. So that's a like natural federation. I'm not even sure if that still exists, to be honest, or if it's called something else. Anyway, so he started looking into that for himself, and he went to watch one of his friends. He came back and he said, Kerry, I really think you could do this. So there's me on my phone, women's bodybuilding. Absolutely not. No, like he's like, these women are like pretty jacked, you know, like women's bodybuilding. That's what I've searched. So I didn't know about bikini or figure or any of them. And I just thought, oh, that's not really for me. I used to say to my sister growing up, like she used to be a little bit more into like the gym side of things when she stopped playing football. And she used to teach me how to like squat. And I'd be like, no, like I would start doing it and be like, no, can't get the pattern, don't want to do it. Like, ugh, no. She got a chin-up bar. I'm like, oh, like what are you doing to your back? Like, it's one. Like I would literally say to her like, oh, like your back's getting well muscly. So I had no idea how that switched. But I think one night I was just in bed, I think it was like 1 or 2 a.m. and I started looking into bodybuilding and saw that like bikini was there, and I saw this other natural federation and was sort of like, oh, like, okay, maybe this could be something that I could do. So I by this point actually got a job in the gym, like just working behind reception and being like started-ish dabbling in a little bit of like PT and stuff like that. And then I met this coach who like competed, and she took me on from like 4 or 5 weeks out. There was people in the gym who were like, don't take her on at like 4 or 5 weeks out. She'll never stick to her diet. She's too small. She hasn't got what it takes, like all this stuff. And this was like recorded, and I heard all of this. So it was kind of like fuel. But back then and growing up, like I've never been someone to actually eat meat. Like I can remember from a young age, like I wouldn't eat vegetables or meat. And obviously what we do is a lot of that. And I would like, it's like I would just chew it and chew it, and that's it. Like I couldn't swallow it, and I just hated it. Anyway, I remember this coach putting me on 10 meals per day. Oh. They were like 4 meals, right? It's actually funny now I look back. It was like 20 grams of sweet potato in like each meal. 20, honestly, and like 50 grams of chicken. And like we were on like 10 meals to get my like metabolism working.
Isn't it funny what you do? Like obviously without the knowledge that you have now.
Yeah, it was like no salt, because salt will make you retain water and all of this. And I look back now and I'm like, I wonder why I have hormone issues.
Yeah, God. But this is it. Like you've been through it all, and like I think you've learned so much along the way. But I suppose jumping to like your journey to turning pro, because I followed your journey since like nearly the beginning, basically from PCA days. Like followed it all when you were turning pro. And I think you were the first PCA. Were you the first PCA Bikini Pro in the UK? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. And you were traveling I think you were going like abroad and stuff like that. But your prep to turning pro, I think, was a big one for everybody kind of witnessing it. And it was so relentless. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because we actually had Becky Dean on the podcast last, and it was interesting. It was actually quite the opposite journey in terms of, you know, it was obviously her second NPC show, but for you, it was like quite some time, and you did fairly a few shows. So do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about that if they don't already know? Of
course. First of all, one thing I want to say is I hated competing when I first started. So
really?
I only carried on because I came second in my first show, and there was a show like a little bit later, like 4 weeks later, and I managed to come first. But it was the only driver for me was that placing. That's like the only thing that kept me going. I hated it on stage. I think it was the nerves and everything like that. So now I've lost count, maybe 29 to 30 shows deep now. But yes, so the journey, it was a pretty mad one. And to be honest, so it was 2019 when I turned pro, and the before bit of that is quite like, it was quite a rocky kind of thing, because I was actually really unwell at the start of the year, and my coach at the time told me like, you literally can't compete, like you're not competing. And I actually that was fine. And then I saw like there was a show at the end of the year, and I really wanted to do it. And then I found out that you had to do a regional to qualify for it, and there was no regionals for me to even like begin that journey. And they announced a regional the day before the British, which gave me 14 weeks. And I begged and pleaded with this coach, please can I compete? And it was like, no, you need to realize that you can stay in off season, you're more than just a bikini athlete, like your health matters and all this stuff. I don't actually know what was wrong with me when I was ill. I think it was like stress related, and I just had a bit of a funny turn, but it took me like quite a while to like recover. But anyway, me being me was like, no, like, I want to do this show. I want to do this show. They've announced this now. So like, let's work hard. So I think I had like 14 weeks running into that. And that was my first Two Bros regional show, at which then I could compete in the British, the British champion would have won the Pro Card. I came first, like, in my height class in that show. And I came first in the next day's show as well in my height class, got into the overall, and like, I'm not sure where I came in that overall, but like, I thought the journey was probably going to be easier, maybe because I'd already won as an amateur 18 out of like 23 shows so far, or something, 20 shows, something like that. I'd already won like a lot of shows, so I thought like, this is going to be mine. And then yeah, I just basically ended up competing back to back. I think it was 6 shows in 8 weeks. No idea how I even like funded it or anything. Like, looking back, I literally gave absolutely everything I had to me. Like, everything. I think I was left with like not much other than a trophy, some great exposure, and luckily some opportunities that could then bring me more. But that was a really mad like run up. I kept placing first at every single show, and then just out in the overall, and like, these judges, sorry, were like, like, just, you know, go again. And I'm thinking, God, like, do you just want my money, or like
what do you want from me?
Like, am I actually going to? So I did like all different shows, like a few different countries. There was like 4 different countries, and then it came to the longest break, which was the 2-week break. And I remember thinking, like, I can't do this. Like, I was literally like done. Like, I was done. I wanted to just eat the world and eat up, and just like, I was food focused, to be fair. And it was just, energy levels were low, and there was self-doubt, like a lot of it. I had people around me saying, like, why is this girl still going? Like, you know, her physique's getting worse, and like, me just trying to cling on to something. Dad were like, come on, like, you've got this, like, you've got like a week left or something like that. And I remember going to I was literally doing like anything I could to try and bring my mindset like back, and just to stay like in there, you know. And I remember going to like a crystal shop. My friend's like into crystals and stuff like that, and I saw her, and she was like, "Oh, go to a crystal shop, get this like purple crystal thing." And like, at this point, I'm like, I'll take anything. Like, I'll do anything. And I went there, and it was the day I actually took things into my own hands. So, right, like, I'm going to take this end of this prep into my own hands. I'm going to start this carb up process and do everything myself. And I put in that day like some strawberry jam, I can remember. And I went to the crystal shop. You're all probably thinking right now, where is this going? I went to this crystal shop. I walked in there. This man doesn't know me at all. And he was like, I'm sensing strawberries. And I'm like, and he's like, and cold. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got jam, like, which I've had this morning. Then I'm thinking, I'm going to Iceland this weekend. This man like doesn't know me, doesn't know why I'm here, doesn't know anything. And then he's telling me, if I trust myself, it's mine. I'm like, oh my God. Like, and God, thing at this point, I don't really know anything about that much about like coaching. I'm dabbling around with carbs and just trying and seeing how I feel and what I look like, and just trusted myself. But as soon as he said that, it gave me some extra like faith, and I was like, right, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just dig in and try and do this myself. So I was checking a coach who was doing the process for me. And I went to Iceland, and that was where I turned pro. So 6 shows, turned pro. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. Like, yeah.
I remember it. I vividly remember it. And to be honest, Kerry, I was sat there thinking, how is this girl still going? Like how? And just wondering where that mindset comes from. So it's quite interesting to hear that it wasn't necessarily, well, it was, if anything, it was dwindling towards the back end of that prep. And to be able to find that sort of self-belief, that self, like you say, that trust in yourself, I think must have been, it's quite a profound thing, because I truly don't think I could have done that. Like, is there anything about that process that you would have done differently? Or do you think that it happened exactly the way it should have done to result in what?
It fully happened how it should have done, because the other thing that happened that day, also this weird guy from the crystal shop told me I was going to fall in love by the end of the year. So it's November point. And Mark was at that Iceland show, and that's where we first met. So like, if I had, you know, competed at the beginning of the year like I was meant to, and like, it's funny, Mark's friend Hader said to me like, oh, why don't you compete at the end of the year with me? And I was like, nah, I'm gonna be wrapped up by then. Unknowingly, like, then I got ill. But like, it is weird how it all happened. Like, my mortgage went through that weekend. I turned pro. It was actually my gramps who died. It's his birthday on the 2nd of November. That's the day I turned pro. That's when I met Mark. Like, it's all those three things sort of like happened at once. And I kind of, you know, it doesn't make sense. And I was angry that I wasn't winning this overall, and like angry that I got like ill and all that stuff. Obviously you keep going and you think like, oh, it's happening for a reason and all that. Really, you don't know the reason. And then when like it all happens, and now I can look back and say it literally happened for me. And it gave me the like realization that, you know, I can't just step into this new league and just take this pro card. And like, it happens, and obviously you see it happen to people. Like, yeah, I can do that. And then I think the best thing was that it didn't happen like that. And it's such like a nice, you know, like, it's such nice memories and like a story to tell. And like, I know that like a lot of people can find some sort of like belief in that, you know, like themselves from that.
100%. And like that journey from amateur to pro, it is so inspiring when it's a journey like that. And even right now, you know, in the pro leagues, it's like we say it all the time, that when you obviously you turn pro, you're kind of at the bottom of the barrel most of the time, you know, and your relentlessness now as well is inspiring other people as well, you know, as I just did in the amateur ranks as well. But how did you feel when, I suppose, you achieved the pro card then, and how has your mindset changed in any way from when you're an amateur to now?
So when I turned pro, like, I'm not sure it like hit me until like a little bit after. I think something like at that time, like, I wanted to take a long time off after that. After I turned pro in like 2019, like, I wanted to take the whole of 2020 off, but Ricardo Pinin, obviously that was Issa Pacini, she won the Olympia in 2019. And she obviously was a huge name, and her coach is in my DMs saying, do I want to be on their team? And like, you know, you're the best athlete in the UK and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, mind blown. Like, so I'm sort of like, okay, like, this person's telling me, no, you don't need the time off. In my head, I'm thinking, God, I've competed every year since 2016. So that's like a lot. And it's not just that, it's like I actually competed always from like May to November. So it was always like a big season for me. And I always did like 6-7 shows, flying everywhere, doing everything. So it was very taxing. So I wanted that time off. But yeah, he sort of changed my mind. And that's where the 2020 prep sort of came from. And I did make some really good improvements and went into the my first show, my pro debut was in Alicante. There was like 44 girls. And I went into it, like, I did a whole prep with Mark, and it was like great and everything. It was pretty hard prep, always seems to be for me. Had stomach issues, like shin splints massively, like dragging my ass through cardio, people telling me to stop, all this stuff. But obviously I carried on. and I actually thought like I had a chance at this show, and like actually like a lot of even some of like UK coaches and people like watching me on Instagram were like I think you've got a chance, you know. I ended up coming dead last, and I say dead last because I was literally fourth call outs and the last person in the call outs. So I'm always like, I literally came like 44th. I was the last name, and that was my pro debut. So
it's crazy though, because like you said, you were for your entire career you were placing first. Like I don't remember a time in that journey before the pro debut that you like were placing last, you know, or you weren't getting a placing. So that must have like massively impacted your confidence and stuff like that, or your self-belief, or did it?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
Like massively. Do you know, it's funny, like I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what shows did I do after that? Because I literally can't even, like, that season feels like a bit of a blur, but I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, well, one show doesn't define you, one season doesn't define you. I thought I was like better than what I was. I need more muscle. I need more. I need to like perfect my stage look from down to like bikini to like absolutely everything. I was proud of my posing though.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
But something like that, it must have humbled you a little bit, and I feel like as a competitor we all need moments like that.
And then like I feel like that's when so I stepped off stage like after that year. I can't even remember what shows I did. I think I did like Italy. I think the best placing I got then was 7th in Italy maybe. And that was that. And then I stepped off stage and like I was like absolutely beat, to be honest, at the end of 2020. And I decided I was going to take a little bit longer off. Therefore, like my recovery phase was literally longed out to like 6 to 8 weeks. So I was like barely really doing anything. And like I always used to take like 4 weeks off post show, like off of cardio, off of training and everything like that. So it was a really like slow like journey to getting back in. So November, December, January, just started getting back into training in that 2021, and then my granddad died, and like that literally sent me on, like I went to the gym and I was smashing the gym, and then I just got really run down, didn't want to go to the gym, was crying all the time, probably experiencing this PMDD hormonal stuff that I've got now at the time without knowing. And then finally like started with a new coach to try and refresh everything and whatnot. I remember getting like 2 weeks back in, and I was like finally starting to like even pose in off season, which, you know, it was like a big deal and can be a big deal to people even today posing in off season, because it's hard, right? Like you don't really always like what you see because the poses aren't as what they should be when you're lean. And then 2 weeks later I broke my foot. So I was like, right, so I wasted all that time, and this was meant to be my long off season. And I didn't come back then from like May till September. And so that was like September 2021. So then I'm rehabbing for like 8 weeks. And I actually started my 2022 prep in like February, thinking, like, am I going to have improved? But I almost like, my progressions on my lifts were like insane. Like I look back at like form and stuff, and that was definitely not there, but I was tunnel visioned, like hard lifting heavy, like form probably not great, but it obviously at that point I needed to bring back my body. So I think like if I was to train that same way now, my quads would be completely like blown up, and like whereas back needed to do that anyway. That's when like the 2022 like season began. So it's all been a bit of a like whirlwind, really. It's not until now that things have actually been like structured, and like I've learned a lot.
I mean,
you really have.
How did you, with all of that, Kerry, because listening to it, you can literally see the roller coaster going up and down and up and down. And like mentally, especially, I know that your hashtag and sort of very much your ethos and your goal at the moment is the Olympia. And that was, since turning pro, that has been your goal. How has your mindset been impacted, or has it, like, throughout that, with that ultimate goal in mind? Like, has that been the driving force, even sort of training through breaking your foot and things like that? Like, what kept you going through things like that? Because I know from a personal standpoint, any injuries or anything, even an illness, if it puts me on my ass and I'm on the couch and I can't do anything, I feel so sorry for myself. So how did you keep going through all of that?
So I kept writing down. I think I'd like had a wake up call and realized like how hard the Pro League was from obviously that. But then I also thought, this is how much time I've wasted. This is how much time I've got. And I think it's really important to like count that time down, even in your off season. And I started counting down how many like days it was until like the Olympia in my logbook, and just like, you know, like I'm around Mark as well, and obviously that's his goal as well. So yeah, I feel like from like a standpoint of like, it's hard because like my social media and everything, like pretty much like it dried up and stayed stagnant. And you know, when you're in off season, like I feel like sometimes, unless you're staying reasonably lean, like people forget your potential. You forget your own potential. You know, like I haven't got delts right now. Do you know what I mean? Obviously they're there, but like there's body fat, and it's not until you put like a off-season photo next to a lean one and you're like, oh, it is there and more. So like I think I'm in a really weird place of like, am I good enough? Can I be good enough? I'm good enough. Can I be good enough? Like really backwards and forwards with everything, to be honest. And I think it was the show when I came. So I came like, again, I went into the British thinking like, I'm gonna do all right, I'm gonna win this. And that was the first show in 2022, because I was really impressed with like the physique changes I'd made. And I placed that, I think 8th. And I thought, oh my god, and there's like new people in the sport placing higher than me. And I just thought, my gosh, like I don't know, but I knew at this point that I had changes to make and I needed to be leaner from the rear and things like that. So I knew that, okay, you've just come 8th, so you didn't present your best. So what happens if you present your best? So I always think, if you don't present your best, but you still manage to place, like, okay, like I got first call outs and whatnot, I think you should be almost happy at that, because you haven't presented your best. So what happens when you
room?
I'm good. I think it's good to look that way. And then yeah, the next show I did, I actually came 3rd out of 18 in Italy, which honestly I remember, it was really funny. I literally didn't know what the hell was going on stage, to be honest with you. Mark wasn't there or anything, and there I am like being called out with like 2 people that are like qualified for the Olympia in a big lineup with loads of Italians, thinking, you know, heading into that show like, well, I'm in Italy, this is like, they're probably going to go, like we always say, which is, I don't really think it's true anymore, like they're going to go for their athletes and all that stuff. I don't think that's true. I think it literally is based on what they see. And I ended up coming 3rd, and I remember being that like those 3 people told to like walk off stage, and now they're just looking at like 4th, 5th, 6th, and I literally I remember going off stage and being like, I've won. Not as in I've won, but I've won. And all the girls were so happy for me, because they'd seen like my journey, even like the 1st and 2nd. Like I was like, I've won. Like, and I literally didn't mean it to them, even people know, but like for me, I was like top 3. Like, what the hell? This was huge for me. After like, you know, 44 off, and then like all these setbacks, breaking your foot, and this not even being my like best off season. And I was just like, Christ, like this is mad. And my phone's going off from like Mark, and like I'm seeing these things I'm being tagged in, and then I'm like told to come back out on stage. And then like afterwards, like I just felt like, wow. I went with my sister, and me and my sister live quite far away, and we don't really spend that much time together. And like my sister was like crying, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is just crazy. It was the best thing ever. And like I don't think I'll ever forget that, even though to some people it would probably be like it's only a 3rd place. To me, more than that. It was so much more than that. And I'm really of like every placing I've got because it always served a purpose. But I think what that did was gave me a little insight into like my potential. I say at the time that like I think I came back and I said to Mark, that was fluke. It won't happen. Watch this season. I was like, it won't happen again. Not this season. And he was like, no, like it won't. Like I think your potential's very much there, and it's not going to be the case. But it was the case. So I came 7th, I came 8th, and yeah, so that was a little bit of a like, ugh. But I know that I wasn't presenting at my best. Like the peaks always like a bit off or something wasn't right. So I thought, oh well, like then I thought I'm going to give it a last crack like in Japan, which I decided, let's say I was flying Monday, I think I decided like the Sunday that I was going to compete. So I was like making all these plans to head off to like Japan. And like for me, I think I was a bit warped at that time. Like I didn't realize like I dropped like 19 or 18 kg for that season to come in, because we had to really push food for my injury and like just to bring my physique back. And there was a lot to like lose. And as much as my head was always really on, it was very obvious at the end of that, now looking back, that my physique was very much tired. And I couldn't see it myself. My coach at the time, Cal, he told me, no, like, don't do this show. Don't do Japan. I actually had a lot of like personal issues going on within that as well. It was a very big year in terms of all of some other stuff, which made it hard anyway. And this personal stuff threw me off. And in the middle, when like deciding on this Japan, I ended up cheating my diet because of like the things going on with family. And it was just, it was a bit of like one of them. So he told me, no, we need to stop. Me being me, no, I'm not stopping. I still haven't presented my best. So I got my own thing. And my physique was just, I was feeling good heading into it, but yeah, it was just very, very tired. And I think that's where I should have listened. I should have listened, basically.
I love the attitude though throughout the whole way. You're just like, I'm doing what I want to do.
I'm scarily like that though. Like it's always that. Whether I've had like jobs that I don't like or something, I will literally just stop it. Like, oh, I don't like that. Stop.
Done.
Like, what you do, or like I want to do. So that's one thing that it's always kind of been, and I think that's why this year, being with like the coach I'm with now, it's very different. Like I loved my experience and my journey with Cal. Like we achieved like so much. He brought me back from like nothing. He was the first one that listened to my hormone issues, helped me out of like a hole with my mindset and like understood me and things like that. But I think I had a level of control in what we did as well. And it's one thing that I've given up now. This is the first time ever. Like I'm saying, okay, that's my training plan. I will listen to it, instead of being like, you know what, I think we need to do, and I can't do, and we need to change, and all of that.
I think we need to eat the jam.
And go buy crystals.
Go buy crystals and just eat the jam.
I think like I did 12 weeks of that off-season phase like by myself, because I know me post show, and I know how I work, and I like if you followed my journey, I am up like 12 kg now, but it has been such a steady like the whole time, and I made sure right from the beginning. It was the reason why I then like looked into another coach and everything like that, is because I started like sort of maybe thinking, could I be doing more, or am I doing this right? Should I be increasing my food? Should I reduce cardio? Should I? And all these questions like that you can answer for your clients, but you can't quite like do yourself. So I just needed like the
objectivity.
Like,
having someone else.
Done a check-in for ages, and just sort of like yeah, so I just needed someone to do that. And I think I just asked Meg like one question one day about her split squats. And then she said, oh, send me a video of you trying. And I was like trying different things for myself to program. So I've always got issues with my like quads, or did have back then. And she gave me this massive detailed thing back, and I was like, geez. And I saw Meg that year like at the Arnold, which was just after the British, before my next show. And she was like, I've known Meg for a very, very long time, since like 2016. And she's always been like really, really honest, and someone that I can like go to. And she's liked some of my decisions I made in the past, and not liked, and like we've always vocalized stuff. I never ever saw myself being coached by her ever. Like it just wasn't a thing. But when she gave me this detailed feedback, I like said to Mark, oh wow, like look at this. I was like, do you reckon I should ask her to be my coach? Like literally just on like a joke. And then he was like, yeah, why not? And I'm actually like, do you know what, this girl like actually really knows her shit anyway. I need accountability, can't think of anyone else. Okay, like let's says. And I remember her being like pretty nervous, and now she would like say she was nervous to take me on because she didn't know if I'd be coachable, because she already know like I am.
I think that comes back, Kerry, to obviously you being in the game for so long, and any coach that would take somebody with that level of experience on would just assume like, or she knows what she's doing. Like you said, you coach yourself, like you know your body and you know peaking. But then I think you've just got to that stage now in your career where you're like, no, you need to hand the reins over to somebody else and just see how it goes, you know, because you've been with, you know, various different coaches, and I would say that they all had a very different approach. Like I know obviously Jade was coached by Meg and I was coached by Cal, and we've kind of discussed before how our journeys have differed, and you were obviously coached by Ricardo, and I can imagine that was totally different again. And then you've coached yourself. But I suppose throughout that kind of journey, like I'm sure you've taken little bits, positives and negatives from both, but what would be like your biggest take home from each of, I suppose, your journey with those coaches?
I think each coach I've had has served a purpose at the right time. Like, you know, like I can say even in 2019 when I was with Rob, LRF, like I know what it takes to push yourself. So like have food taken away from you, cardio increase, like things like that. I know how that was never easy. He was always on me, always wanted me to like do good in respect of that. So that was kind of a take home from there. Ricardo was like a massive like, wow, someone sees this much like potential in me. Cal, again, like it's just so much knowledge on like, you know, hormones and like training, and like just I don't know, it was just completely different with him. That communication worked really well like together, but maybe I had too much of an input, which he was okay with, but it just that broke down. Then I think I'm someone that likes to, or more so now maybe, needs that reassurance. Like I don't believe in myself, I would say probably as much as maybe I should do or whatever. Like even now, like if you say to me, what's your goal? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm competing at the end of the year. And I'll say, my goal is to get to Olympia. And there's that like, don't know whether it's going to happen. Don't know. And it's like, I don't know. I've got to a point in my career where I'm like, well, even when you believe in yourself, like it doesn't
there's still
happen.
so much you can't control.
I'm not going to like kill myself because like I don't believe in myself. I'm like, oh, like whatever, there's people around me that do, and like I must believe in myself to a level to be doing everything I'm doing every single day. Like it's a lot to go to the gym like twice a day. Like I'm doing all these little things that I never used to do like right now, and like there's so much more detail. And like I've literally just gone back onto like a meal plan, which is like a big thing. So I've always been a macro tracker, and like everything is like goal driven, like so down to like my timing of I need a pre-nap if I've got something to do in that time, or an appointment. I don't have an appointment in that time because I can't make that time. I'm in bed, I'm asleep, like for my pre-workout nap. like things like that really leveled up. Because I'm almost 30, so I see this as like, I guess, a bit of pressure. Like I want to get that first place and make name for myself, like even more in the pro league. Do you know what I mean? So I need to get out to the States, and I'm aware of things like that. So hopefully this is the year that like these things can materialize, and everything will then make sense as to why it had to happen this way. But I am missing the cutoff date for the Olympia this year, so I will not be competing for that. So it is after that, and so that will be qualifying for the 2024 Olympia. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. And will this, Kerry, be the first time where you've actually made that structure, as opposed to sort of being hit with an injury? Or, because I know you're a huge advocate of off season, but this sounds like the first intentional space of time where you've gone, actually, no, this is what I'm doing, no deviation, this is the plan, and we're going to stick to it.
2021 was meant to be my long off season, but obviously it was a long off season. But obviously that was not a productive long off season because I broke my foot. But that was finding off season in the respect of like my relationship with like myself and food and things like that. Like I literally always thought like once an eating disorder, always an eating disorder. That was my thought process. And I can't say like, I don't know, if things really went wrong in my life or something one day, obviously you can't say what's going to happen. But like, even throughout like my last prep, there was no food focus or anything post show. Was like, it's so different. I'm so relaxed, calm, and like food's just food to me actually in prep and off season, which is like massive. And I think that long off season back then like did me the world of good. I really needed. So from as much as I didn't grow my physique, I grew like my mindset massively. That's continued over into like now, even to a point where I can say like I literally at the moment, like I'm in off season, I've done 25 weeks now, and I'm sick of food, like actually sick of food, that I have actually had Meg just slice my calories, taking 900 away. And I cannot be bothered with MyFitnessPal. Like, just can you just give me a meal plan? Whereas before, a meal plan would be a really negative thing to me, because it's like control and like
restriction.
It doesn't seem like it's any worry for me anymore. It just seems like I can't be asked to do, I can't bother to like be on MyFitnessPal. I just want a meal plan, hate food. Like I'm gagging throughout, whatever. Although I've had this calorie drop, it wasn't until Mark said to me, "Oh, I wonder how much weight you're going to lose," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that's a like result of how many calories pulled." Like that's where my head's at. So I'm a lot comfortable within myself.
No, that's like proper like settling into an off season, though, isn't it? Like how you feel like when you're coming out of a prep versus how you feel at the end of an off season. Like it's so different. Like you're so food focused at the start, and all you think about is food and tracking and things, and then you get to the end and you're almost like sick of it. But it's so funny how things change and how you adapt and how the approach that you take changes, you know. But you like, for somebody who's like struggling to settle into their off season, like whether it be with their body, whether it be with food, or you know, the eating struggles and stuff like that, what would be your biggest piece of advice? Because you're somebody who has been through it all, you know, clearly at either ends of the spectrum, you know, having kind of the eating struggles and now having no appetite. So what advice would you give to somebody in a position, and even like a first timer, because off season can be a very, very scary thing. So what advice would you give?
So I think, like, firstly, I always say to my clients, like, your body can handle a lot more than you think. As in, this might sound weird, but like, so often you'll find people are like restricting themselves post show, and they still think they need to be on like 1,200 calories, 1,300 calories. And then they'll end up like binging, not realizing how much they have eaten. And if you just spread those calories out through the day, like it's so much of an easier like process. And I always advise people as well, this is like what I seem to do with my clients, and it seems to work really well, is like advising completely taking out and it almost feels like a punishment. Take out your cardio, take out your training, and it almost like gives your body that real like recovery that you need, and like allows your hormones to settle like a lot quicker. Like I always get my cycle back within literally 4 weeks and like that. And I just think you take out that, like, you might say like, oh, I've eaten a bit of food, and then you've got like fake energy, as I would say. So you've got this energy and you're like, yeah, I can train and hit glutes, but you are fatigued as hell. So actually take the time off. Literally, I'm talking 2-3 weeks, something like that. I feel like your body just settles, your hunger settles quicker than if you were to keep trying to stay lean. I think also setting yourself like so periodizing things, if you're in a position in your do that, even if it's like, right, you have a 4-week recovery phase, then we're going to do 6 weeks of off season, then we're going to review and really like break things down. And I think just be very open with your communication. Do not just, I always say as well, and I'm really big like this with my clients, I can never tell someone to have one off plan meal a week. I just can't. Like in a dieting phase, obviously that's completely different, but I'm talking like off season. So I always like to have that communication with my clients to like adjust things and say, right, this is what you could do with the day, and then you can go and do that, or so I like to be like a little bit more flexible, and I'm more flexible in my off season. So maybe that's like why, like if someone told me one off plan meal a week, I don't know, it would almost make me feel like that's my like do or die, might make you eat more. So I always think like just kind of try and be a bit more like live life and look around you at how other people are eating, like normal people. Like your dad, okay to go to a restaurant and like eat all the chips on the plate, or not eat all the chips on the plate, and things like that. So I don't know if I fully answered that properly, or if that makes sense.
But it does.
Trying to be a little bit more relaxed and try not to be so like rigid, and stick to like your walks to help digestion and things like that, but just don't run yourself into the ground, and really focus on like recovery, but also remembering that it's really important, this part of the process, and it is important as any other. So it's almost like people, I think, sometimes do cut themselves all this slack a bit too much, and then it's kind of like you need to take responsibility here as well.
For sure. Something I've loved about you, Kerry, as well is like, I remember, I think it was 2019, or could have been something after, but I've always noticed on Instagram anyway that you fully embrace kind of your off-season body. And I know myself, I can get a little bit conscious and I don't really want to share things, but you've always been totally honest and totally real. Have you always been at that place in your off-season where you've kind of accepted your body and haven't, like, I suppose, been worried about like social media and what people thought? Or was it like a progressive thing over the last few years?
Probably a progressive thing, but like I think even when I used to have like my eating disorder, like, because there was obviously times where I still wanted to be sick and stuff like that, but I didn't, but I documented that. So I think for me it's almost like a release, like I can, like it's like more for me, like they're like generally aimed at me, or like
I get that.
So I think that, but I would also say if you scroll down my page now, you will not see a front pose from my off season. I have that because I guess security is just like anyone else. So as much as like I do post, like I've been on holiday and I've posted my body like loads and stuff like that, there's still that one shot that I haven't posted. So I'd still have like my insecurities, and it's because like obviously our front pose, I don't like the way my stomach like is. I get quite like, God, I've been stuffing my face with like off-season food. It's like got where like digestion was like not great, hence why we've pulled back, like, and I felt like not right. And then I think oh, stomach looks bigger, my glutes don't look as big, and then oh, what will people think? So still do think like that, but there are other posts where I do try and just let go. It seems to be that one post that has got a hold on me.
I think none of us appreciate that. I think that none of us, like, none of us are immune to it. Like, I think we're all exposed to it no matter what level. And I think if anybody listening, and sort of the take home from it is, yes, you can set yourself up as well as you physically and mentally can for this process. But ultimately, you're a human being. And every now and then you're going to have a moment where you're just like, hell no, am I sharing that? Like, I don't want people to see it. And I think it's nice in a world where we share pretty much everything to have that element of privacy as well. So if you want to hold that back because, okay, it doesn't make you feel 100%, that's okay as well. I think from a mindset standpoint as well, though, Kerry, it's quite nice to hear that even though you share as much as you do, even that is a challenge for you. Like, are there any other challenges that you would say have been quite sort of profound things throughout your journey, whether it's off season and in season and in prep? Is there anything specifically challenging that you've really had to overcome?
So, like, actually, like, as much as like this off season has gone really, really well, I've actually been suffering like a lot from hormonal issues, which is for roughly like 2.5 to 3 weeks of the month, which is obviously a very long time. And that is like, so 2 to 3 weeks, then I come like on my cycle, and then I'm like, okay, just for a little bit. Like, it's been really hard. And like, I don't know if you guys have picked up on it much, but like, I'm always deloading, or I'm always pulling back, or there's like a lot of that has actually happened this season for me. And so the hormone thing has been hard because I want to share it, but I literally, on that day, I just need to go to bed. And I've turned down business opportunities. I've turned down things. I like haven't enjoyed some of that, like often being in the gym, or I'm dragging my ass through work. And that's me being completely honest. That's probably been one of the hardest things throughout this journey. And that is because I have PMDD. We've been looking at some options. I've got a phone call tonight regarding HRT and things like that. Because I'm basically like premenopausal and all this, and PMDD is like a mood / brain disorder. Basically, the better my hormones work, the worse like it is. So I get the same, like, on blood work, my bloods look like, my hormones look great, but it's like my brain can't handle the normal dips that we would get like mid-cycle, and the peaks and can't handle it. Something like that. You know, I don't even fully understand it all, because no one really does. There's not that much on it. You can't look at blood work and say, yes, you've got it, and things like that. But obviously I have a lot of data now. And there's some real low times. Best for like the support that I do have around me.
Yeah. That's what you need, like, especially when it's something that not everybody can understand, or, you know, if you have a kind of male coach, you know, they can't always, you know, relate. And I completely get that. But having that support there now is crucial. Are you doing anything? I spoke about this with Cal, like, are you doing anything outside, I suppose, your own mental work, like with therapies and stuff like that kind of helps you get through those times? Because I can only imagine it can be quite crippling, especially when you have to pull back from training and you're working towards such a big goal. I can only imagine that would impact your confidence, I suppose, entering a prep, knowing that you're kind of missing out on crucial time, you know?
Massively. To be honest, like, I've been trying to, I don't know, I've just been trying to get through. I haven't really been doing anything extra. I know exactly when it's coming, and like the real low days, I don't know, I guess not really, apart from communicating and being told, like, and reassured that it is okay. I think one of the best things is that I am seeing so much progress within my physique. So I think I like almost try and convince myself that I do have really hard weeks of training, or hard until I have to pull back again. But I almost like, actually, I wonder if sometimes like the pullbacks have helped from
I have to say, Kerry, like, you're saying like you're pulling back all the time, and I've seen you've been like sick and whatnot, but then I'm seeing your photos, your updates, I'm like, oh my God, like, how do you look like that? I know if I deloaded and rested and I was sick all the time, I would actually just look like a potato.
Mash.
Like, I would be mashed.
Yeah,
you'd mash potato, and I'd be like, I would just be, honestly, I wouldn't even look like I competed, you know? So it's like,
it's strange.
You really are training quite hard when you do have the ability to do so.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's one thing that has changed like massively. And that's what my coach said. She was like, you're almost going to experience like newbie gains, because so many exercises that I put back in and that I now understand, and I am going like at it when I'm doing these exercises now, like with like understanding of why and how, which sounds weird because I've competed for so long. I feel like I've just done exercises but not maybe really understood them until recently. And I think that's where a lot of the progress has really come from. I'm having like a more whole food approach. That I just have done. I think the more you kind of get into this industry and understand that actually like it helps your health and things like that, like that just naturally I think happens and it becomes part of your lifestyle. So I think bored with all of that, I think that's massively helped my physique. And it does like mind blow me. But again, this is the longest amount of time I've spent here, and my reverse was done ever so slowly. So maybe that really must have helped as well, because it has been such a slow process and not just a dump of fat like kg up 5 weeks post show. It's been like a long time, so they've got to muscle and fat being added throughout that whole time. But
and just from a fatigue management fatigue management is amazing. And I think especially hormonally, Kerry, if your body's under that much stress whilst it's trying to manage what's happening to it and those hormonal fluctuations and the byproducts of them, like managing that fatigue management. And I know, having been one of Meg's clients, that fatigue management is something that they're really, really, really hot on. It's just fundamental. And I think from your recovery standpoint as well, like your mental standpoint as well, I think that downtime, as challenging as it can be as an athlete, I think it's so important, because it sounds like you are so much more present now than you have ever been.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And I think also what's helped with my training is I literally have to film every single set, and I have to send it to her. And it's almost like I've had to really like humble myself and put like my ego away, and every rep has to be like perfect. And not allowed to progress on until we've done that. And like I see her in person and we speak every day and like all this stuff. And you know, if there's a week where I'm like, do you know what, I haven't done my mobility for like a week, and it's like that's not good enough. Whereas I would just be like, oh, okay, get back on it. So like I'm really remain. That's
amazing. She's filling that gap. I think you need it in the coach, and I really hope that does push you forward even onto more. But I suppose we had this conversation on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to get you on as well, just to speak about this, given your experiences with coaches. We've talked about it time and time again with podcasts of various different guests, and kind of, I suppose, things that pop up in coaching practice that, you know, maybe shouldn't be happening, controversial, you know, but more and more people are kind of speaking about it and we're realizing these things. But what would you say, like from your experience, is kind of a big red flag when it comes to coaching from your experience, or maybe what you've heard from other people? Because I'm sure people have reached out to you time and time again with things. Is there anything that you've kind of picked up along the way that, you know, especially when it comes to bikini, is like a big red flag?
I've heard like quite a few things recently from like first timers being told to use heads and things like that. And I think like speak to other people before, and don't just rush in thinking like that's the answer. And I think like the thing is, most people sadly just want a transformation, or they want to update their bio with this many pro cards or this many this, that and the other. And I think like just it's really hard, because you trust this coach, so like you're gonna, but just try. And like I turned pro completely natural. Like it can be done. There's natural pros, like, you know, like just don't rush into anything from like a ped perspective. I think that's like the biggest thing, to be honest. It is so like damaging. So I think like yeah, and I don't often speak about anything like that, but I do think that is something that like I'm hearing more and more regularly these days, and I'm like, what? Like, it's mind-blowing some of the things that they are told. So definitely do your research, but like as much as you can research on Google, just reach out to like other coaches that you know, and just, is this something that I should be, you don't have to drop name drops or anything like that, but like, is this something as a first timer I should be experiencing or being told to do? I think just like have responsibility for like your journey, and always ask questions to anything, and just absorb everything and learn everything. And that's something. So don't just say yes, don't be a yes person, always question it. I question everything, and like my best, like, as I would say, clients are the people that ask the most questions. So always ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% agree.
It's too easy with bikini, you know, we say it all the time, but we want it yesterday, you know, we want the results straight away. And it's like we said on the podcast with Cal, like there's so many pro cards kind of left, right and center for people to try and achieve, and it's very easy to kind of jump in to these things. But what advice would you give to somebody kind of new to sport, trying to choose the right coach for them? You said obviously the research, but is there anything, I suppose, in your journey as well? You know, obviously Meg was a big one with the kind of training element of things. So what would your advice be to somebody else looking for the right coach?
I think it's probably like just really ensuring that you have that like connection with someone. I think that is actually really important, and like that you can be completely open and honest. I believe that once like the openness and the honesty kind of goes, it's kind of not worth it at all. So as much as like you might not want to be honest with people, like just always be honest, because it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think finding that safe space, isn't it? Finding that safe space where you can connect with somebody. And if that breaks down for any reason, like people outgrow each other as well. And I think you're a prime example, Kerry, of not being afraid to try a new relationship with somebody and a new coaching relationship, see what they can offer you at that time. Because as your journey progresses and as your life progresses, you're going to change and your needs are going to change. So maybe being open to having more than one conversation with people just to...
As well is like, don't just go for the teams, like don't just go for the teams. Like there's people like that know a lot, or will always, like I always say to people, I might not know the most as a coach, like I have experience, but one of the important things is like I ask people. If I don't know something, I will always ask. So regardless, you're going to get the right answer.
Yeah. I do find, like you said, with the teams, we actually had a similar conversation with Luke Miller on the podcast. It's like Luke Miller and Paul as well. And it's like when you get to that very, very top level and you're working with so many people, it's very, very easy to get complacent, you know, as a coach with what you know, because it's like, okay, you're pumping out these results. You might have like, you know, genetic freaks on the team, but you know, you're not furthering your education, you're not furthering your knowledge. And you know, these genetic elite people, they go far, but everybody else just kind of gets put to the wayside. So really, really like that point there, because there's so many amazing coaches out there that know a lot, and as well, experience is huge, you know. So don't just look at the kind of names alone, and especially females, I feel like we don't get enough credit as coaches, you know, especially with like the hormonal side of things, like knowing what somebody is going through across the month and being able to relate to them when it comes to shows. And I know as a coach myself, one of my clients, it's like she appreciated so much even just the value when it came to her makeup and her hair and all of that kind of thing. That all plays a huge role.
Exactly. I think that's like a massive thing, to be honest. I'm like as well, like I think it's so important that like you shouldn't, so say for example I'm on a team, which I am with Meg, like I shouldn't be getting any more than that lifestyle client. Like I always like to treat my clients in that same regard, like oh no, just out getting back to me, get back to your prep clients. No, like that's not it. Like every person is valid, and like if you, I don't know, just taking me back in the day on now, if one of these big name coaches took me on back in the day now, would they treat me the same as I am if I went to them now, you know? Like a crucial moment for someone's like progress. Like you probably would look at me back then and be like, yeah, she hasn't got potential. But how do you know someone? How do you know? Like people always come to me and be like, do you think I've got potential? And I'm like, have you got like the work ethic? Have you got the right mindset? Are you going to listen to me? Like, are we going to listen to each other? We're going to connect. Then let's try. Because I think it's important. You can't see your potential as much from the early days, and that's why I think it's really important to like actually, as like an athlete or in, you know, just coming into the sport, remembering that each of your idols has had a journey and they haven't just landed where they are. Like now they just haven't. It's taken like a lot, and that's something really important to remember as well.
Yeah, and having that coach that actually believes in you as well, like have a coach that's on side, like, because that exactly what you've said, that potential is not necessarily apparent out the gate. So having a coach that is very much invested in pulling that out and pulling teeth to make sure you get there is mentally as well, I think, for an athlete navigating this, not knowing what the hell you're going to look like, especially if it's your first prep, it's the worst.
You need to be cared about. Honestly, like I really, like you do as well, probably just really care about my athletes. Like I'm always checking in on them, like even not their check-in day or they're not, you know, it's just, I don't know. I think that is something that we've probably learned from maybe negative experience in the past and how not to be treated. So you know now how to treat others. That's one thing that you sometimes don't find from the big teams. So don't like look at the big teams and think like, oh, because they're sponsoring a show or anything like that, you're going to have an upper hand. You're generally not. Like you care, somewhat some honesty, and someone just not money from your transformation, basically.
Yeah, I get that. And not just looking and saying, okay, right, they got one person to the Olympia, okay, I must go with them, you know, because you don't know how they're going to treat you, an amateur, you know, who's trying to just even get a medal, do you know, the kind of way. It's going to be totally different as well. But to sum up the kind of podcast, I suppose we want to touch on one thing, and I know Jade was kind of eager to chat about it, but are dating obviously a pro as well. So let us in on that relationship, because I can only imagine it brings its own, I suppose, positives and negatives. But how have you found being in a relationship with Mark? And I suppose you're both very, very on similar paths, really. And even your season last year, both getting the kind of, he was obviously kind of second and third, but you're both chasing that kind of Olympia goal. So how do you find working together?
You know what? Like, I think people sometimes expect like a bit of a different answer. Like we've been asked this on podcasts before, and we've had people like, so like, how's contest prep? Like both on prep. And generally, I cannot fault like any of it. I wouldn't change this journey. Like we actually had this conversation yesterday, because in like off season and the things that obviously we do, we're very much regimented, and like, you know, you almost feel like some evenings you want to reward yourself with watching TV together, but your goals are too big for that. So you like miss out on time together. As much as we spend a lot of time together, it is more time like chasing your goals together. And honestly, like when you say negatives, I really struggle to even think of any, to be honest, apart from maybe I have to prep all the food.
Feeding him.
That's probably why your appetite is gone, just making his food alone.
They're both very, very invested in each other's journey. Mark's not in this year, like, and this is the first time like we, since being together, haven't like competed together. But usually like we find this pattern, if we're on prep together, if I'm having a down day, like for example, he will pick me up. Like in the gym, I'm training, like let's take yesterday for example, I'm training upper, he's training lower. We're both running like backwards and forwards to check to see if that person needs a spot or something like that. There's just always that support. And Mark has been pretty open on his social media with some of the setbacks he's had. But it's almost like I experienced that already way back when, like when I broke my foot and stuff, and then he's had some injuries. So it's almost like I know how to like deal with that, and like, yeah, I don't know. We just work really, really, really well together, and I literally wouldn't have it any other way. So yeah.
That's amazing.
I think that's the importance as well, isn't it, of like actually complementing each other, because I can only imagine that anybody getting into the sport, it can be quite especially if your partner's not necessarily in the sport or knows what the hell you're doing. I had it with my own family, like they looked at me and was like, why are you eating again and why are you losing so much weight? So is there any sort of advice that you would give loosely to somebody that's in a situation where perhaps that balance hasn't been struck yet? Is there a way that they can manage that? Have you ever had experience of that?
Yeah, so I did have experience of that. It was the same like years ago, literally years ago. And I don't know, I'm a massive like be you and the world will adjust kind of person, which might sound like so savage, but like, I don't know, because you hear it, don't you? Some people are like told to like stop bodybuilding, and like they're almost like in a, like I know this for a fact because I've experienced this from like clients, like it's either me or bodybuilding, that kind of vibe. And like I just think in life you just need to just make sure you're doing the things that make you happy, and the right person will align with you. It probably sounds really easy for me to say because I'm with someone and I'm well like aligned with, and like it's perfect and all that sort of stuff, like, but I just think it's so important, that part, because you're going to lose yourself. And like imagine choosing not to bodybuild and then looking back, I don't know, something awful happens with your partner in 4 years time and you're like, damn, like why did I not compete? Or I don't know, I just yeah, that just always be like aligned in what you want, whether it's normal or not normal to anyone else, because the right people will gravitate towards you. And I've always said, be you and the world will adjust. And I massively agree that, because I was like different when I was younger, and people would be like, what are you doing? And, you know, like probably did lose friends over this, and this was like a bad thing, and why is she doing that? And like I've got family that don't really speak to me much and things like that, like because of this. But now you look at the position I'm in, doing what I do every single day with someone that I love, and like we weren't looking at each other, and like so things just happen.
It's what you value at the end of the day. You have your passion, you know, you have your dream, and like going back to what you said, it's things serve a purpose at any kind of point in your life, and bodybuilding is clearly a big passion and purpose for you right now, so you need to chase it, you know. Not to be and try and keep the relationships that you have as intact as you can, while still chasing what you want, you know, and not letting that go.
Like as much as we literally, both of us put literally like our life to bodybuilding, we also understand that it is important to make time and do, you know, like, I don't know, no phones at breakfast, and like those, like being together in the evenings for as long as we can when we've done like everything that we need to do, and like just being really supportive, and never like, and just understanding like that we're different levels of tired and stuff like that, because the shit we put our body through, and it's a personal thing, and you know when someone needs their space and things like that. But very blessed in that respect, to be honest. So
and like competing, we always say it's like it can be like a temporary thing, you know, and you're not going to be competing forever. And something that Cal always taught me is like, cook while the oven is hot, you know, and while you have the ability to do so, you know, make the most of the time that you have working towards this goal as well. But
back of our minds as well, like we're getting older, we can't compete forever, like what next, business adventures, things like that, like, you know. So I think that's
absolutely amazing.
At the, like even when you're at the top, or you know, close to, or something like that, and you've got the sponsors and blah blah blah, like you kind of have to look beyond that as well, because like you're not young forever and you're not competing forever, and then what, you go back to work, like you don't want to do that. So you also have to put a lot of work in, like my life was telling me, because I have a life coach too, like you have to put a lot of work in around that. So I think you asked me a question earlier actually saying like, have I done anything for my mental like health? I do have a life coach, to be fair, so that does help me a lot and helps me to be accountable of someone else as well.
Like so important.
It's that identity beyond being an athlete, isn't it? Like at the end of the day, like you said, it's an acute period of time, or it could be an acute period of time in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of your life. Like this could only affect, if you're lucky, 10 to 15 years of your life, or potentially even less than that. So just making sure that all of your other plants are watered, because they don't go away. They bite you in the ass if they're not.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
So when I'm older is to sort of not have anything else about me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want that. Amazing. Kerry, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was a really, really nice conversation. I'm sure it gave lots of people insight and background into your journey as well. So thank you so much for coming on. Can you let the listeners know where they can find you on socials and do your little plug?
Sure. So thank you guys, firstly. Like, again, honestly, like, it's been really nice to sit down. I feel like we've touched on so many different areas, and I probably could speak forever and ever. So I'll definitely be up for coming back on here one day in the future. But yeah, you'll find me on Instagram mainly at Kerry Sexton _IFBB Pro, and just search my name on YouTube, Kerry Sexton. And yeah.
Up to date with the journey. The Olympia dream continues.
Yeah, let's do this.
We'll all be following along as usual, since I've been following since the very, very start of my career, and continue to following along. So yeah, thanks so much, Kerry, for coming on.
Thank you. And thank you everyone like who does listen to this, who does know me and supports me, because honestly, like, I get through from the support, like I really do.
Amazing.
We're behind you, girl.
Thanks again.